All right, welcome everybody to the final virtual career Tuesday of the spring semester 2023. I think we saved the best for last. I have to admit that this is a very personal virtual career Tuesday for me. We are welcoming back Kristen Scarlato, who was most importantly in her career, a career intern at the School of Business Career Development Office. And we're thrilled to have you here. I mean, you and I have been chatting for the last 15 minutes before this session started, and I think I could probably chat with you for 3 or 4 more hours. But for purposes of this, what we would love to do is to be able to talk a little bit about your journey so that for the students that are listening to this later, they know a little bit of what it's like when you first left UConn, how you've gotten to the point now where you have the KES Innovation Company, your very own company, and then the journey between there and that, now and then. Yeah, I could speak. So I'm going to interrupt you every once in a while with questions because that's what I do. But mostly, let's just get started a little bit about you left UConn in 2016, and then your first job was with, let's see, it was Estee Lauder, right? When you did like temp work for them.
So yes and no. So when I was at UConn, I was interning for Estee Lauder.
Mm-hmm.
I was working on the Tom Ford beauty brand, and I was kind of bouncing around between different departments. I was doing education, North America sales, marketing, just kind of trying to get my feet wet and just understand the industry and the different roles and departments that go into it. So then when I ended up graduating, I actually went into Shiseido as my first full-time role.
Okay.
Although I know that my LinkedIn can be a little confusing because I still kind of did part-time temp work for Lauder at some point, and so it's a little messy. But my first full-time role was with Shiseido, and I was working on the Center of Excellence across a few different brands. So Shiseido proper. I was working on Buxom for quite a while, which is owned by Shiseido. I kind of touched the NARS brand a little bit, but not a whole lot. But during my time there, I was only working on product development, so really seeing a different side of the industry than I had in my internships. Do you want me to keep going about my history or?
Yeah, so what's interesting is what's the center of excellence? So when people think about the cosmetics industry, they go right straight to, oh, the product. But tell us a little
Mhm.
bit about the Center for Excellence.
Yeah, so a lot of the big companies do that. And so I always joke that similar to accounting, the beauty
Mm,
and cosmetics worlds, we also have the top four, the big four. We have Estee Lauder, Shiseido, Coty, and L'Oreal. So those are kind of considered the big four cosmetics companies.
hmm.
Um, Not to say that other cosmetics companies aren't equally as huge, because they definitely are, but those are just kind of the tried and true that everyone goes back to. So the Center of Excellence, I know that Shiseido has one, and I believe Estee Lauder has one. I'm not sure about L'Oreal and Coty, although I wouldn't be surprised if they did as well. But
Okay.
essentially, the purpose of the Center of Excellence is a team that kind of has the ability to oversee all of the brands under the parent company, just to make sure that no one's bumping into each other too much, no one's really cross-launching things. Um, no one's, for example, launching the exact same formula at the same time and no one realized it.
Mhm.
So that's really the purpose of the Center of Excellence. It's more so an advisory capacity, um,
Okay.
there to help when needed, there to just kind of see if there's any overlap and advise.
So when you were first looking for a job, I mean, I remember those days when you were looking into like temp work, trying to get into
Mhm.
the agencies. The Center for Excellence, was that anything that you even knew about at that point in time?
No, not at all. So I had been interviewing and applying to quite a lot of different places, honestly, with inside and outside of beauty, because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And everyone freaks out when they graduate, so I was like, let's just apply to as much as I can and see what happens. But I remember I got a few job offers, and none of them felt right. None of them were in beauty. None of them felt right, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it. It's not going to work. And so that's why I kind of held out, kept applying. And then in October, which feels like a long time after graduation, but it really isn't. But the October after graduation, I had gotten the job with Shiseido. And I think even when I had started, I don't know that I realized it was the Center of Excellence. I think it was more so Shiseido just as the brand.
Hmm.
And then it kind of evolved into the Center of Excellence. And then that evolved into me primarily working on the Buxom brand as well as the Shiseido brand. It kind of evolved a lot during my
Right.
time there.
And I think that's really important when we talk about that, and you've looked at different parts of the industry, is that
Mhm.
you have to understand that you're not just going right straight into marketing brand, right? So
Yeah.
marketing students always struggle with this. I'm getting right towards graduation. I don't know where I want to go, but I know I really think I want to go into the beauty industry. So
Mhm.
you took a path that brought you there, but you learned a lot in the process.
Mhm.
Um,
Definitely, yeah, and I would say too, I think, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I always give to people is don't be afraid to jump around.
mhm,
And I say that because I've heard the exact opposite my entire career. Everyone, former bosses, mentors, advisors, whatnot, almost everyone that I've spoken to has, I don't want to say tried to scare me, but they've
yeah,
always kind of called out, you jump around a lot, maybe try and
mhm,
stay one place for a little bit longer. And I completely disagree with that. I think I have gotten so much experience because I've jumped around. I've worked in every single category across beauty, which no one really has the ability to say. And I've worked
mhm,
across startups, medium size, large, established, new, everything.
right.
So anyway, so to that point, yes, it's always an experience. It's always evolving.
Yeah. And that's what we were talking about earlier, is that there isn't a traditional path going in this area. If you were in accounting and you were
Mhm.
jumping around, it's different because there aren't so many different areas where you're learning about it. But the path that you've taken, you've learned so much. I mean, we talked a little bit before we started the session about the plant-based medicine certification that you did at Cornell. Talk about that for just a second. Like what made you do that?
Yeah, so I'm actually still taking the course. I
Mhm.
have not graduated yet, but I will be soon. But yeah, so honestly, that really started when I started working with the Naturopathica brand.
Okay.
Um, Naturopathica is very much rooted in plant-based holistic care,
Hmm.
holistic skincare. And so going into it, I've developed skincare in the past, but I realized that I hadn't developed anything quite like this, which is also why I wanted this opportunity and was really excited to jump into it because I learned by fire. So I was very much excited to just kind of get it and start learning. And a few months after I had started, I came across this class at Cornell. Actually, my the CEO of the brand had come to me, and she's the one who got the email about it and was like, "Do you want to be classmates? Let's take this class together." And so we both signed up, and now we're both taking the class.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really just something that I thought would be interesting and would just help add to my experience and knowledge in the role.
Right. And does that have any impact on your own company, KES Innovation?
Yeah, so I recently started KES Innovation. This was
Hmm.
about almost a year ago at this point, I think. So I had always jumped around in beauty. I'd been at a number of different brands and companies, and I always wanted to consult. I always wanted to move into that and be my own boss, which I'm sure you remember from when I was interning in the career center.
Yes.
Yes, that was always it's always been a goal of mine. And so
Mhm.
I was at my last company, which I absolutely loved. Everyone I worked with is amazing, but I was presented with an opportunity to come onto the Naturopathica brand in a consulting role as their
Mhm.
head of development, with the space to work on other brands, start my consulting business, and really help expand it. And so it was kind of an opportunity that fell into my lap a little bit, but I
Mhm.
felt like I had to take it. And so, yeah, that they kind of lead into each other.
Right.
If it wasn't for Naturopathica, I probably wouldn't have started out on this path as soon as I did. Um, so yeah, they kind of are linked.
Linked together, yeah. And
Yeah.
when people talk about going into consulting, you
Mhm.
gave really good input here of saying when you go into consulting, you need to have a breadth of knowledge in the industry.
Yes.
And all of the jumping around that you said that people were telling you not to do has really informed all of that for you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, honestly, I've worked across pretty much every single category within the beauty and cosmetic space. And it's something that a lot of people, especially my age, but even older people who have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, aren't able to say that they've done.
Hmm.
It's very easy to get stuck down one path, whether it be skincare or color cosmetics or hair care.
Hmm.
It's very, very easy to get stuck going down that one path. And so I think jumping around and having that breadth of knowledge really has helped push me into this. And it's
Hmm.
also helped me, I think, have the confidence to take this next step. Because if I hadn't jumped around that much, I don't know that I would have as much knowledge and I don't think I'd be as confident to be jumping into it like I did.
Right. And how do people have the confidence to trust what you're saying until they realize that you do have the knowledge areas in so many different ways? Can you talk to us just for a minute about what it's like to launch a product?
Yeah, so it's crazy. It's a little bit of a roller coaster.
Hmm.
So I can kind of bring you through like the life cycle
Oh, cool.
quickly. So basically where it starts out is starts out with an idea. So an idea can come from literally anywhere. And when I say that, I mean like 2 days ago, I was walking down the block and saw a pet store and had an idea for something and called my boss and I was like, hear me out. What about pets? And she was like, what are you talking about? And then it morphed into this much bigger, idea. So ideas can come from literally anywhere. And I think the beauty of tapping into your creativity is also that one idea often leads to another, which leads to another, which then leads to the thing that you end up doing.
Right.
And so anyway, so it starts out with an idea. Once you get your idea, then what I personally like to do is a bunch of market research. So
Hmm.
I will then do a full competitive landscape of who else has talked about this idea, who's gotten close to it, who's done something similar, how much are they charging, what ingredients specifically are they calling out, where are they selling it, what type of brand is it? So as much information as I can possibly get around this idea, just to understand if it's a white space in the market or if it's something that people have been doing that maybe I just didn't realize.
Okay.
So that's kind of the next step. Then what happens after that is we put together a brief. And the brief consists of pretty much everything I just talked about. So the demographic that we want it to hit, the fill weight, how much we think it's going to cost, the key ingredients that we need in it, and the story behind it. Then after that, we work with our lab. So we have a few different labs that we work with at Naturopathica specifically, but there are hundreds of labs all around the country and in different countries that you can work with and whatnot. But then we find a lab that we want to partner with, we brief them on it, and then we work with the lab to develop the product. Um, the development then takes a few months. It can take anywhere from 6 months to about a year.
Okay.
And that's going back and forth. They send me a sample, I try it, I like it, I don't like it. This is what I don't like. This is what I do like. Change this, change that, whatever it may be. And then once we get to a place where we like it, we approve it. And then we go into production, and then we launch. And launch looks different for every brand. For smaller, more internet, Instagram based brands, it can be very heavy on the social media. For brands that are just getting started, it can look more like an in store type of activation.
Hmm.
For Naturopathica, for example, we're a spa brand. And so a lot of our activations focused around spa. But yeah, marketing of it can look different for any brand.
So when you say test it out, are you literally like testing some of this? Are you the
Yes.
guinea pig here?
I am the guinea pig, 100%, yes. I physically test every single product I launch. My personal philosophy is that if I wouldn't use it and wear it, I can't be selling it to other people,
Hmm.
which is a huge conversation that I just had with someone last week, because we were talking about a product and I wasn't feeling right about it. And, that's kind of where I was coming from. I personally wouldn't buy this, so I don't feel right trying to get other people to buy it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I personally test every single thing, even like the version ones that can sometimes be very rough. Personally test everything. Funny story, I will say I was doing a dry shampoo about a year and a half ago or so. And I tested so many dry shampoos in 2 to 3 months. It took me a full year to get my hair back to like a
Oh
relatively healthy place.
no.
So yes, I test everything.
That is being all in when you're when you're doing
Yeah.
that kind of testing.
Yeah.
Um, So the story, you mentioned the story. I love that idea, right? So when you're telling the story about a product, how do you come up with the story? Do you have the idea first and then the story feeds into that, or kind of both?
It's kind of both. I think it depends. It's definitely both. It depends on the brand. It depends on the process. It depends on the idea. So, for example, there are some times where I'll have the idea first, so it'll originate with product development, and
Hmm.
then we'll sell it into the marketing team. They'll agree with us, disagree with us, and then we kind of refine the story. But it comes from the ideation piece first.
Okay.
There are other times, though, where marketing will say, hey, we noticed that this specific ingredient has a lot of buzz. Can we make something really quickly? And then it'll come from them down to me. And then they kind of are the ones who started the story. And then I kind of do the product. So it's very much a mix.
And you said you launched two products yesterday.
Yes, yeah, two products launched yesterday. Very
Hmm.
exciting. They were both for the Naturopathica brand.
Okay.
One is our Manuka Honey Creamy Body Lotion, and the other is a Manuka Honey Shower Body Exfoliator.
And is Manuka honey one of those products that you just said it's a new
So
buzz product?
not actually. So Manuka honey, I mean, yes and no, I suppose. Manuka honey is kind of like a super powerhouse ingredient.
Hmm.
Really, really great for the skin. And it's a key ingredient pillar for the Naturopathica brand.
Okay.
That brand's been around since 1995. I just joined it a few months ago.
Hmm.
So they already had kind of a story with Manuka honey, but we hadn't really dipped into body products yet. And so when I had started, that's kind of where the ideation came from. You know, let's pick up an ingredient pillar that we're known for using, that we like really have the authority on, and then let's figure out a way to get it into body.
Nice. So I'm thinking about, the students that I said to them, just today when I was talking to them about here's they're marketing students, right?
Mhm.
Looking for that exciting role. I love what you said about it takes some time, right? So it's not accounting where it's a I can't say the word, strict program where
Mhm.
very lockstep. It's not finance where you've landed your role
Mhm.
in by Thanksgiving. So if you were going to talk to some of the marketing students right now, let's talk a little bit about like how do you approach, maybe the beauty industry, like where's the place you could start? So in some of the temp work, some of that research work, how would
Yeah.
somebody access some of that?
That's a great question. So I think it's actually easier today than it was a few years ago because
Mm,
of the remote work,
okay.
working from home and whatnot. And so I'd say one suggestion could be trying to see if you could reach out to brands or companies, or I would honestly even say consultants, and just see if you can do work for them here and there. A lot
Okay.
of times, speaking as a consultant, a lot of times consultants have brands that they'll take on or projects they'll take on, and they'll get a little bit overwhelmed with how much they have to handle. And so they could be looking for someone to do, 5 hours of work for them, um,
Okay.
10 hours of work for them here, or, whatever it may be, project based. And so I think reaching out that way could be a great foot in the door just in the industry and just a way to learn, although it is definitely more of an informal path. Um,
Hmm.
I'd say another great way would be reaching out to people on LinkedIn. I've
Okay.
had a lot of people from UConn actually reach out to me on LinkedIn the past few years, just asking me for questions or informational interviews or whatever it may be. And more often than not, I walk away from the informational interview and I'm like, "You're great. I will recommend you. Let me know where you need me to
Nice.
send it." So
Yep.
I think, and I know a lot of other people in the industry who are very open to LinkedIn I can't speak now, informational interviews.
Contagious.
It is. But I know a lot of people who are also open to things like that.
Hmm.
And then I'd say last piece of advice is I know the big brands are shiny and exciting, but there are other ways to get into the industry that may not seem as shiny and exciting.
Hmm.
So going through contract manufacturers, going to labs, going to packaging companies, those people who are kind of working behind the scenes is a fantastic way to get into the industry. There are hundreds of labs, hundreds of packaging manufacturers, all that work with Estee Lauder, Shiseido, L'Oreal, Coty. And
Hmm.
so being able to get in that way and being able to meet these brands and these, you could walk into a meeting with Estee Lauder and meet the entire product development team your first week.
Wow.
And then right there, you've got a connection with 10 people that you wouldn't have beforehand. So I
Mhm.
think going that path is also really, really great, although I know it's not the shiny, exciting path.
Right. But you've shown us just from the conversation we've had for the
Mhm.
last, 20 minutes that the shiny path doesn't always get you where you want to be,
Yeah,
right? By experimenting and looking into the other ones. How does somebody find the labs and the consultants? Like I'm not sure even myself, like how I would
yeah.
research like labs that do that type of work.
So I would look on LinkedIn. That'd
Hmm.
be my first one. Also, just Google. Honestly, there are a lot of times where even myself, I might need a lab to do a specific formula that
Okay.
I've never worked with before, and so I'll just Google
Hmm.
labs in New York or labs in Connecticut, whatever it may be, that do specific formulations. So you can look these things up online. So I would do that, and then maybe go to LinkedIn and see if you can find someone who actually works there, as opposed to just emailing their random
Right.
email. I wouldn't do that, but use that as a way to just get the name of the company.
Hmm.
So I think that would be one way. And then there's also an organization. It's called CEW. It's
Okay.
for cosmetic executive women. And they are kind of like a database network type of platform for the cosmetics industry that they host a lot of networking events. They host a lot of speaking events, webinars, things like that. I do think there's a fee for it, so I'm not entirely sure about that,
Hmm.
but I do know
Right.
that it's very helpful and informative for connections and networking.
Okay, great. And it's sometimes you can get some of the free resources even just from looking at the website of some
Oh
of these
yeah. Yeah,
organizations.
yeah, for sure. I would be very
Right.
surprised if they didn't have free resources that would be helpful for students.
Hmm. That's wonderful. And I've got my notes here already. But I do notice, I think there we have one student. Is there a Klarna? Do you want to unmute yourself, Klarna? Tell us who you are.
My name is Clarina.
Klarna.
I'm a communications major. Um, I don't know what else to say.
Well, are you interested in the beauty industry or consulting in what we've been
Um,
talking about?
well, right now, like I was just basically like I joined this just to like get a feel to see like because I don't really know what I want to do yet.
Hmm.
Um, I know I want to do something with like involving marketing. I just don't know. I'm just trying to figure out like where I fit.
Great job of doing this kind of research, right?
Yeah.
And so what's it like hearing somebody's story? Kristen's an alum, so she's walked in your shoes.
It's actually pretty interesting because right now, like, because I was trying to figure out like where I fit, I'm also a trainee for like financial consultant. So I'm trying to see like if that's something like I want to do, but I'm not
Mhm.
like 100% sure. But I'm also a restaurant consultant for my uncle's restaurant.
Oh.
So it's like I'm kind of in between a little bit, just trying to figure out where my foot, should stay.
I mean, I would say jump around. I think the restaurant consultant, that's quite interesting. My parents own a restaurant here in the city and have always owned restaurants my whole life and whatnot. So whenever I hear someone say that, I'm like, we are kindred spirits. I get it. Family business.
Yeah.
So I understand. I think I don't know, I'd say jump around. Honestly, there are days where I don't even know if I am meant to be doing what I'm doing or if I am doing what I'm meant to be doing, however you say that. But there are days where I question it too. And so I think you don't need to have it all figured out right now. Just do what makes you happy in the moment. And what I mean by that is, you know, take a job, see how it is. If it's not making you happy or you feel like it's hurting your mental health or whatever it may be, feel free to leave. Like, start looking other places. Like, it is okay to jump around. I've seen a lot of friends of mine who have gotten stuck in their jobs for years. And they walk away from that and they're like, that was horrible. It can start to hurt your mental health after a while. It gets you down. It kind of hurts your I want to say like inspiration, your confidence kind of, if you stay at a job that you're not meant to stay at for too long. So do what feels right in the moment. And then if you ever hit a point where you're not happy with what you're doing, start looking and don't be afraid to leave.
Okay.
I love the fact that you were talking about when you feel stuck, like you can't really be creative in that kind of space. It's hard
Yeah.
for you to take the next step when you're not taking care of yourself and thinking that through.
Oh, yeah.
Saif, yeah. Saif, you had a question. Do you want to ask your question?
Sure. I just wanted to ask, I know that you kind of said that you were like jumping around from places to places, but like how did you come to the conclusion that you wanted to work in the beauty industry? Like what did you do in school? And are there any structured opportunities now? I know that you said there weren't any before, but like does Estee Lauder have a structured internship for like the beauty industry?
Yeah,
Like that.
that's a great question. So I was always very inspired by the beauty industry. It was always something that I kind of knew that I wanted to go into. And yes, Estee Lauder has an internship program. Shiseido has an internship program. Actually, I think they all do. L'Oreal has an internship program. Coty, I think, has an internship program, although you'd have to check that. And then also a lot of the like smaller, more niche brands, a lot of them also offer the same thing. Like Naturopathica, for example, we had hired an intern sometime over the summer, and we actually ended up hiring her full time just a few months ago, and she's amazing, fantastic add to the team. But yeah, she started out as an intern, and we couldn't let her go after the summer.
Yeah. Kind of the way we felt about you.
Oh.
It's wonderful to know that, like, even in an industry that's really as competitive kind of as the beauty industry, is that there are internship programs that, I'm assuming that even as a senior, you can go into an internship program because it's more structured around providing the resources that the company needs at the moment, as opposed to here's what you're going to do for the first month and then the second month.
Yeah, so I know that so I think it varies by program. I'm not entirely sure how that works. I know that for L'Oreal, for example, they have some type of post-grad rotational program. I forget what it's called. And I think it's quite difficult to get into, but they have some type of structured program that I think is like a year and a half long, and you kind of rotate through different departments to figure out where it is that you want to be. So that would be the post-grad option for an internship. For Estee Lauder, I'm not sure if there's any specific rules as to post-grad, undergrad, whatever that may be. But then I know for the like more niche brands, smaller brands that aren't under one of those umbrellas, a lot of times they're very open to anyone of any age or level in their career, or post-grad, undergrad, whatever it may be. They're very, very open to the help. And Naturopathica, as an example, we had hired an intern who had already graduated, but yeah, so I think it just depends on the program.
Right. And important for us to remember and for students to remember is don't always go for the shiny thing,
Yeah, well, that's another thing too, actually, is a lot of students that I've spoken to talk about Estee Lauder, Shiseido, L'Oreal, like the big ones. And I think a lot of times the opportunities that you're going to get that are a little bit easier to get into are the smaller brands. You're also going to learn a lot more in the smaller brands because you're doing a lot more. At
Right.
these big companies, they're so big and they're so structured and they're so, process oriented, and they know exactly what they need you to do when they need you to do it, and that's kind of it. And so I always found that being at a smaller company, I think, is just better from a learning perspective because you really have your hand in everything and you don't really have a choice. You kind of get thrown in, you just figure it out. But your hand is in every department. And so that's really where I think the learning comes from.
I like that. All right, Mick or Sue, I know that you joined us.
Hi, Sue.
Kristen was wanting to say hi. Any questions from either
Kristen?
one of you?
You know what, Kristen, I would just ask you if there's something in particular that your time at UConn you felt as though was really helped prepare you for where you are today. Was there a specific class? Was there something specific that you participated in, maybe as a student organization that you look back on and think, wow, that was very powerful and very helpful?
Yeah. Well, I mean, other than working at the Career Center, I would say I think the most influential class that I took was, I forget the name of it, it's been a while, but it was like I did the digital analytics certificate program thing. I don't know if UConn still offers that, but I did that, and it was all about working in Excel and being able to analyze big sets of data and whatnot. And I think honestly, that's been one of the most important things that I've learned how to do that has really helped me progress in my career. And I say that because I think in product development specifically, but also more so in the creative marketing world, I would say a lot of people assume that when you're in these more creative roles, you don't understand how to do the more analytical roles. And I've seen that to be true for a lot of people that I've worked with, a lot of different companies. And being able to have that analytical piece and being able to merge that with the creative side has really, really helped to set me apart from a lot of other people. And I've had multiple different bosses at multiple different companies note that out to me, that being able to do both of those is very, very important. I actually taught at the last company that I was at. I used to hold like lunch and learns to teach the rest of the team how to do these things. So it honestly, that is one of, I think that is one of the classes that really has helped me and stuck with me and just, yeah, helped a lot in my career.
Well, I thank you. I think it speaks clearly to the fact that, you know what, it doesn't matter what it is you're doing, right? That there's a spot out there in some way, shape, or form for analytics. It's part of our life in everything that we do in every way. And, you know, from when you're looking at comparing somebody who's a data analytics major compared to somebody who's working in health and beauty, the whole point is marketing, data analytics, it's all relevant. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think to add to that too, something that I've seen just with a lot of people I've worked with is there is an assumption that being creative kind of means that you're missing that half of it, I guess. And I very much resent that standpoint. So I think, yeah, that's one of my biggest pieces of advice, is that even still today in the industry, that's still how people are looking at the more creative roles, is they've got this assumption that you kind of can't do that half of it. So yeah, just focusing on that really helps to give a leg up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, where you're talking about the fact that you've got that school of business degree, right? That's the part of it, right?
Yes. Honestly, yes. A lot of people, so a lot of people in the industry, specifically in product development, come from FIT. Which are you guys familiar with FIT? Yeah. So it's the Fashion Institute of Technology, and it's based here in New York. But a lot of people in product development come from FIT. And it's quite interesting because I think, FIT does a great job at teaching the specifics of product development and formulation and the ins and outs of ingredient lists and whatnot. But I think there is a piece missing where you kind of get that business school learning. And so a lot of people are actually very surprised when I tell them that I came from a business school, and I have a business degree. A lot of people are always like, really? Did you? So yeah, it's quite interesting.
Kristen, I have a question for you as well. I was going to ask you, I know you just touched upon mentorship along the way too in your career, and how impactful and important was that for you starting out? Did you have mentors here at the university, or did you also seek out that mentorship in industry, especially the ones that you worked in, as far as the companies that you're a part of?
Yeah, definitely both. So Kathy, Kelly, Lorraine, everyone at the business center was, fantastic at mentorship and advice when I was in school, and even after school. I think I had called you guys a few times freaking out because certain things had happened. So that was definitely a huge help. But then more so in like the beauty space, yes, I definitely looked for mentors and advisors. Most often than not, they were former bosses of mine. Or it still are, my mentors still are former bosses of mine. But yeah, I have a few different mentors that have since moved to different brands in different capacities and whatnot, that if something comes up where even now I'm not entirely sure what to do or how to handle a situation, they're more than willing to just talk to me on the phone or help to give me advice. There have actually been a few times where they've helped to get me a job if I'm looking to make a move or looking to go into a different category, and they may be at a company that I'm interested in. So that's been a huge help. And to that point also, so one of the brands that I work on as this consulting, venture that I've started, one of the brands being Naturopathica, the CEO was one of my former bosses from a few years ago, who we just stayed in touch. She was kind of a mentor to me. And then one day she just called me up and was like, hey, let's get drinks. I want to catch up. And I was like, okay, I kind of had a feeling something was going on, but yeah, then we just had a great conversation about, what I'd been up to since we were working together, and she gave me this opportunity and whatnot. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's excellent. It's the power of networking and finding the right partnership along that journey as well is so crucial and important.
Absolutely.
Great insight, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's probably the perfect way for us to segue into recommending to students that are watching this, reach out to Kristen on LinkedIn. You know, she mentioned LinkedIn a few times, different ways to find labs, to find other consultants. But Kristen has so generously given us her time today. I would keep her on the phone until like 6:30. Probably we're going to have to stop recording long before then. But remember that this is an industry that takes some creativity in your job search as well as where you want to go. And thank you so much for bringing it back around to that school of business degree. Is really, it can make a huge difference in an industry that doesn't necessarily put that first. So
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
So appreciate you. I appreciate your being candid and talking about different opportunities, the different ways that students can connect. I appreciate everybody that was on the call today. And I know we're on YouTube, but just a shout out because Sue joined us on her birthday. So happy birthday, Sue.
Happy birthday, Sue.
And have a wonderful day, everybody. I'm going to stop recording. Anybody who wants to stay on for a few minutes is welcome to do that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.